Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to Studios. I am Gina, and I am so happy you are here with me today. So, do you ever wonder what your signature marks are? Like, you look at people's journals and you look at their artwork and you see certain things and you're like, oh, I know exactly whose art that is. Because you can see those little marks, those little nuances, like the color combinations and the lines that they use, and you know that that is associated with a certain artist. Well, I'm here to help you figure out what your signature marks are. So this is one of my mini sketchbooks, and I've done a lot of work in here. I haven't actually gotten in here for a while, but when I look through, let me move some stuff out of the way here. When I look through this, I can see that there are certain things that I know are me, that are Gina. So you can look at my colors. You can see lots of line and marks that I make over and over again. So one of mine is the little loop-de-loos. I love using those. I'm big on circles. I like using dots and scribbly lines. I don't use the color black too much. I'm more into the blues, the pinks, the peaches, but I'll be honest with you, I love all the colors. This is probably my favorite color palette right now with that purple. And so I'm kind of looking to see what marks I'm always making, and I want to catalog them. So here is me just playing around with some flowers, practicing my flowers. And here's what I like about this little study. I'm not using a heavy-handed mark. And so that's something that I've noticed as I go through my work. Some of my marks are very heavy-handed, meaning that I've pressed hard, I have a thick line, and then some of my marks are very light. And this is not normally me, but I love it when I do it. So that's something I've been playing around with, is the thickness and the fine lines. And so here again, I did a little study of my shapes, my lines, my colors, and all of the different little symbols and marks that I like to make. And so I've taken these little things over here, and I just kind of blew it up and made a bigger one over here. And this is all just practice. None of this is beautiful, wonderful pieces of art that I'm hanging up. It's just things that I like to do, little studies that I like to do that will cause me to really think about how I create. So what do you say we practice figuring out what our signature marks are? And maybe you don't know what your signature marks are, and that's okay. You're not gonna know until you actually practice. So let me grab a clip here because this is not wanting to stay still. Now I'm gonna use crayons. I also just grabbed a bunch of markers, and I also have, hold on here, I have some of these pins. So the point of this exercise is I'm just gonna play around with some marks. And you can see I drew squares and stuff for these, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that for this. I'm just gonna mark on my paper. You do it however you want, but I'm just gonna mark, and I'm not even gonna think. I'm just gonna draw the shapes that I like to draw. Think about when you were a little kid and you had a piece of paper. What were the shapes that you would draw when you had that piece of paper, that blank white paper? And I know it always scared the bejesus out of me having a blank white piece of paper, because I was always afraid that I was going to mess up. But go back to that little kid with a pack of fresh crayons and a blank piece of paper, what would you draw? What are the things that you like to make your crayon do? And use repetition. See if it feels good doing it over and over and over. And as you do it each time, maybe change something. Change the direction that you're holding your writing utensil. Maybe use your non-dominant hand. Press hard. And then press lighter. Now this is something that I've been working on and it's kind of hard. So use the end of your marking tool. Because when we hold things, we usually hold it down here. My mom used to always say that I'm trying to kill my crayons because I had such a death grip on it. But maybe hold it from the back end and see what kind of marks you can make. All right, now I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to go to a marker. What kinds of marks do I like to do with a marker? And you can feel that dragging across the paper, and oh, that is like magic. Especially if you have a thicker paper like this. This is like a, I don't think it's a watercolor. It might be like a mixed media paper. And I just love the pulling and the dragging as my marker goes across the page. One of my favorite pens is just a simple Bic pen. I love these. And if you are my age, you remember the movie 16 Candles. And one of the reasons why I love this pen is because when Molly Ringwald is in class writing notes to her best friend about Jake, she uses one of these Bic pens. And I always remember that. I was like, gosh, I want to write notes with that Bic pen just like Molly Ringwald does. But I really do like the way these pens, I just like the way they feel. I like the weight of them. And it's like they never run out of ink. Now this is just a cheap little gel pen that I got at the Dollar Tree, but hey, there's nothing wrong with that. So I love, because a lot of times when you buy something cheap, you have no cares about what happens to it, and so you become more free. So look at this. I love these color combinations right here. So this periwinkle purple, this mustard yellow with the glitter, and then the blue. I love that. All right, so now I'm going to play around with thick versus thin. Okay. And I'm not gonna, again, I'm gonna hold just the end. There we go. And see what kind of lines I can get. Ooh, I like where it's heavy and then it goes back to being thin again. One of my favorite things to do is loop-de-loos. I love loop-de-loos. Sometimes in my artwork, I'll have loop-de-loos going like this. And in the middle, I will put a house. And those little loop-de-loos become my trees. And so that's kind of cool. I like doing that. I'm gonna take a green and just kind of shade them in. Now you're not gonna like all your marks, and that's okay, because this is how you figure out what your signatures are. Another mark I like to make and I'm going to get a different color. Ooh, let's go with this. Is I love to make these little triangle-y things. They actually look like a little bow tie. I started making these, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And I don't even know how it came to be. Whoops. But I made them so much that I didn't even think about how I was making them. And so you saw these two right here. I wasn't doing it the way I normally do, but it was one of those things that just became automatic. And yeah, like if I think about it, I'll make a weird mark. But if I don't think about it, then I make these really cool marks. Okay, again with the loop-de-loos, I just love these scalloped, I guess is what I'm thinking of, scalloped lines. And the more you make marks, the more you'll start to see marks. And one of the greatest things about becoming an artist was not the creating, although I do love the creating, but it was being able to see like an artist. And what I mean by that is, once I started doing these things, like making marks and choosing different colors and holding pencils and pens and brushes different ways, I started to see these types of shapes and designs and patterns over and over in everything. And it trained my eye to see like an artist. And that's really all you're doing when you are creating, is you're just recreating what you see, and you're doing it with your interpretation. You're putting your own spin on it. Now, that's if you're an abstract, which I believe I am an abstract artist. I'm definitely not a realistic. And part of that is because I don't know, I've never really, one, it intimidates me because to me, when you paint realistically, I feel like you have to be perfect or precise. And I know my stuff is not perfect or precise. But I also feel like if you're doing something that is very realistic, like let's say you are making a portrait of someone or something, then you have some rules that you have to follow. And if you don't follow those rules, and by rules I mean like if you don't draw exactly what you see, then it's not the realistic portrait or picture or whatever interpretation. And I know I've told you this before, but I'm not really a rule follower. I have such trouble with rules. So this is one of my favorite pens. This is just a Uniball Onyx, and it's just a really basic pen. I actually got like a pack of them on Amazon. They're fairly cheap, and I just love the thin line. I also like how just it feels in your hand. Okay, so I'm almost done here. Let me dig around. So this is a, what is this? I don't know. This is a Japanese pen that I got in an art store, but I love the tip of it and just the way it feels as you drag it across the paper. And so from here, I see that I have a lot of marks that I like to use over and over and over again. And so now I'm going to start to hone in on those marks. And I'm going to start to look at, okay, what is it that I would consider my signature? So let me go back and do my houses here. Love that. And I always like just the basic, just this basic right here. Just these little dots. I imagine that these are like stitches. If I'm sewing, these would be like little seed stitches. And that's another thing. I like to think of my marks as they're like stitches. They're like if I was sewing something. Okay, let's see. Anything else? Ooh, let's use this. Again, I go with the loop-de-loos. And when you think about this, when you grab a mark making tool, you grab a pencil or a pen or a marker, what is the very first thing your hand wants to do? And for me, it's always my hand wants to make these loop-de-loos. Is yours that your hand always wants to make lines? Does your hand always want to draw circles? All right. Okay, so now that I've got this big conglomeration here, I'm going to go through and I'm going to kind of pull out what I think are my signatures. And it could be my signature marks, it could be my signature colors or compositions. And I'm just going to use this little card because I need to like use it to draw around. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just kind of draw. Oh, for the love of biscuits. Of course, I get a marker that doesn't work very well. Okay, so I love this little box of goodness right here. I love that because of the color. I've got my pencil line in there. I've got some thick. I've got little dots. I've got those little like circly things. So I love that. Another thing I love is this over here, this pink mark. Whoops. And so what I love about this pink mark is I love how it went very heavy, and then I love how it's thin, but my favorite part is going to be this little piece right here. Okay. This is my favorite part. It's this little mark right here, and I know it seems very silly, but it's how this line went down thin, and then all of a sudden it got thick. I love that. Okay, of course, I gotta have my houses, because I'm like, I don't even honestly think of them as houses when I draw them. They're just, to me, they're a shape. They're a shape that means, it just means so much. There's so many things I can interpret when I make that shape. And I got some of my little loop-de-loos down here. I'll do my little bow ties that I have, because I do like those, and I use them quite a bit. And zigzags. Oh, I love a zigzag. I remember my brother, he would always scribble zigzags. And I used to tell him, that's not a drawing, you're scribbling. But it is a drawing. It's mark making. And mark making can be anything you do to make a mark. I love little clouds. One of the things I love with a cloud, let's see, I have a pencil here, is to just take a pencil and to barely let that pencil glide across the paper and make these little cloud formations. Love that. And then to come in with, I'll use something really light here, to come in with a different color. I love that. To me, that is just goodness. Goodness, goodness. All right, my friends. So I have made some marks. I pulled out the ones that I know I love. Ooh, I do love these right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now, just because I didn't put a box around it doesn't mean it's not something that I use, and it's not something I can't use, but I just really know that these are my ones that I go to. And if you're worried about, well, I can't use this mark because so-and-so uses it in their art. Hello. Shapes and lines, they are for everyone. And just because I make loop-de-loos doesn't mean that you're going to make the same loop-de-loos the way I do it, or that you get the same meaning from it that I do. And just because I draw circles doesn't mean that somebody else can't draw circles. Maybe circles mean something to someone else differently than what it means to me. So take your marks, look for things that you like, put that writing utensil in your hand and just let it go and see what marks come up. And this is a great exercise to do over and over and over again, because the more you do it, the more you're going to find out about yourself, and the more you're going to find out, these are the things that mean something to me, and these are the things that my hand wants to do. All right, my friends, I hope you are healthy, I hope you are happy, and I hope you do something creative today. Until next time, bye.